The Third Anglo-Maratha War, 1817 to 1819. The Third Anglo-Maratha War was the last conflict between the British East India Company and the Maratha Confederacy in India. It began with an invasion of Maratha territory by British East India Company troops. The troops were led by Governor-General Hastings, supported by a force under General Thomas Hislop. Operations began against the Pindaris, a band of Muslim mercenaries and Marathas from central India. The first battle occurred at Pune, where the Peshwa, Baji Rao II, attacked the understrength British cantonment on November 5, 1817. The Maratha forces had 20,000 cavalry, 8,000 infantry, and 20 artillery guns, while the British had 2,000 cavalry, 1,000 infantry, and 8 artillery units. The Battle of Kadaki followed, where the Maratha initially created and exploited a gap in the British lines, but the British infantry's advance soon overcame them. The British claimed victory with a loss of 86 men compared to the 500 Maratha killed. The Peshwa and his forces fled first to Purandar, and then toward the city of Satara in the Maharashtra state. The Peshwa then fled to the town of Koregaon, where the Battle of Koregaon took place on January 1, 1818, on the banks of the river Bhima, northwest of Pune. Captain Francis Staunton arrived near Koregaon, along with 500 infantry, 2 6-pounder guns, and 200 irregular horsemen. 24 infantrymen were of European origin, and the rest included Indian sepoys. A fierce battle ensued that lasted the entire day. Soldiers captured and recaptured streets and guns several times. Although Baji Rao's commander Trimabji Dengle killed Lieutenant Chisholm, who was found by his gun with the head cut off, the British forced the Marathas to evacuate the village and retreat during the night. The British lost 175 men, with more than half of the European officers wounded. The Marathas lost 500 to 600 men. On February 7th, General Lionel Smith entered Satara, captured the royal palace of the Marathas, and raised the British flag. 6 days later, the British captured Sinhagad. On February 19th, General Smith's troops attacked the Peshwa at Ashti en route. During this battle, Bapu Gokhale, Peshwa Baji Rao II's commander-in-chief, died while defending the Peshwa from the British. His death and the skirmish at Ashti had hastened the end of the war. The British captured the Raja of Satara, along with his brother and mother. On February 27, 1818, British forces, under the command of Sir Thomas Hislop, approached Thalner Fort in Maharashtra. The commander of the fort, Tulsiram Mama, ordered his troops to fire on the British. After several bombardments against the fort walls, the British stormed the fort and seized its garrison, which was composed mostly of Arab soldiers. The British tried and executed Tulsiram Mama on a tree for perfidy. On March 16, 1818, British forces occupied Purandar Fort in Maharashtra. On June 3, 1818, Baji Rao surrendered to the British and negotiated the sum of 800,000 rupees annual maintenance. While the Maratha Empire mourned the Peshwa's downfall and banishment as a national defeat, he contracted more marriages and spent his life in religious performances and excessive drinking. By mid-1818, all the Maratha leaders had surrendered to the British. In early 1819, the British had taken almost all the forts, except Asirgarh Fort, which was under the command of Jeswant Rao Lar. In March, a massive British force besieged Asirgarh and occupied the town next to the fort to serve as a temporary base of operations. The 1,200-strong garrison was subject to constant artillery bombardments before the British launched an assault, which led to the fort's capture on the 9th of April. With the capture of Asirgarh Fort, the British victory was complete, and all military operations ceased. Aftermath. The consequences were significant and reshaped the political landscape of India. The end of Maratha power. The war marked the end of the Maratha Empire as a major political and military force in India. The Marathas, who had been a dominant power in central and western India, were decisively defeated. The annexation of Maratha territories. The British annexed large portions of Maratha territory, including the Peshwa's dominions, the territories of the Bhonsle and Holkar dynasties, and parts of the Scindia and Gaikwad territories. This expanded British control over India. The establishment of British paramountcy. The victory solidified British supremacy in India. The Marathas were the last major indigenous power to challenge British authority, and their defeat paved the way for the British to establish control over most of the Indian subcontinent. Treaties and subsidiary alliances. The defeated Maratha rulers were forced to sign treaties that placed them under British suzerainty. They lost their autonomy and were required to maintain British troops in their territories, further weakening their independence. The Peshwa's exile. The Peshwa, Baji Rao II, was defeated and forced to surrender. The British offered him a luxurious life in Bithor, near Kanpur, and gave him a pension of about £80,000, ending the Peshwa lineage's political influence. Economic exploitation. The British imposed heavy indemnities on the Maratha rulers, draining their resources and further weakening their ability to resist British dominance. Impact on Indian society. The war and subsequent British policies disrupted traditional social and economic structures in the Maratha regions. The British introduced new administrative and revenue systems, which often led to exploitation and discontent among the local population. Precursor to complete British control. The defeat of the Marathas removed the last significant obstacle to British dominance in India. By the mid-19th century, the British had established direct and indirect control over most of the Indian subcontinent. The British East India Company seized the famous Nasak diamond as part of the spoils of the war. The British reduced the princes of Rajputana to feudal lords who accepted their paramountcy. They also recognized Pratap Singh, a direct descendant of Shivaji, as the ceremonial head of the Maratha Confederacy. They appointed Raghuji Bhonsle III, who was less than 10 years old, as the ruler of Nagpur. In summary, the Third Anglo-Maratha War resulted in the collapse of the Maratha Empire, the expansion of British territorial control, and the establishment of British paramountcy in India, setting the stage for nearly a century of colonial rule. If you love captivating historical stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more epic tales from the past.